Welcome to Money Talks with Cathy Yang, your intel on the Philippine markets and the economy. Asian stocks fell on Friday amid Trump tariff fears. Will Philippine shares follow suit? President Donald Trump broadens his tariff threats to include lumber. Apple CEO Tim Cook reportedly meeting with Trump to talk tariffs. And that's a live shot of the Vatican City where it's a little after 2 in the morning. Filipino faithful pray for Pope Francis' speedy recovery. We have an exclusive interview from Rome. Asian markets mostly fall today, Friday, in their opening trade. Investors are closely watching inflation data from Japan and their mood still dampened by U.S. President Donald Trump's persisting tariff threats. Japan's Nikkei 225 slipping by nearly 0.5%, and South Korea's Kospi trading lower by 0.1%. Australia's ASX 200 opens on a higher note by nearly 0.2%. And besides Japan's inflation, investors also keeping an eye on the Japanese yen. It is strengthening to a 2-month high of 150.2 per US dollar. And this comes as the market anticipates more rate hikes from the Bank of Japan this year. Apple CEO Tim Cook is meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump, but the specifics of their discussion are unknown. Cook is striving to maintain a strong relationship with Trump, attending the inauguration in January and visiting his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida during the transition. Bloomberg first reported the Trump-Cook meeting. Apple is in a precarious situation as Trump imposes a 10% tariff on goods manufactured in China, where most of the iPhones are produced. iPhone sales are lagging in the U.S., the company's biggest market. Apple recently unveiled a budget-friendly iPhone, a sales lag in the U.S., its biggest market. So how do industries make sense of the disruptions under Trump 2.0, which include removing AI protections and eliminating the U.S. Department of Education? Well, 2 of our guests here on this show offer their insights.
I think the fundamental job of keeping individuals safe and consumers safe, it's still there, and great cybersecurity leaders and great cybersecurity professionals will always pick up the flag and look for ways to keep folks safe.
President Trump upends and disrupts the education ecosystem in the U.S. What risks do these pose for Edge Tutor in North America?
The reality is the U.S. has a broken K-12 education system like many other countries. And as long as there's a need to improve K-12 education outcomes, there will be demand for tutoring, and there's a role that we can play as a very cost-competitive, source of super qualified teachers.
The European Union's trade chief meets with U.S. trade officials to avert the threat of tariffs and avoid a period of economic pain. Maros Sefcovic emerges from a 4-hour meeting in Washington with the EU expressing interest in buying more U.S. liquefied natural gas. For their part, U.S. officials are willing to reduce tariffs. The 27-member EU could be hit hard by Trump's reciprocal tariff plan announced last week, seeking to raise U.S. import tariff rates to match those charged by other countries. Meanwhile, Trump will add lumber to the growing list of goods facing tariffs. Trump says he is thinking about imposing a 25% duty on lumber and forest products starting April 2. Well, let's take a look at how the markets are doing at the get-go here in the Philippines. The PSEI opening down as we speak, down from nearly 1% yesterday. Investors are dealing with Trump's new tariff threats and the Fed's cautionary stance. We're seeing it open lower by about 0.1% there at 6,070. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the peso and see how it has gained ground against the dollar. That was Thursday. It closed at 57.94. Right now, it's opened at 57.92. The dollar, that's a tad stronger against the U.S. in the first 34 minutes of trade. Now, let's check in on our guest who just arrived from a long flight from holiday over in Japan, Luis Limlingan, the president of Regina Capital Development Corporation. It's so good to see you, Luis, and welcome back.
Oh, hi, Kathy. Thank you for having me. Nice to be on the show finally.
Right. So, what do you make of the possible removal of the Philippines from the dirty money gray list to start with? Because that was something that we were watching out for from last week when the governor spoke to us on this show. He said it was going to happen today.
Well, any incentive just to get the foreigners to see the Philippines as not just an attractive investment, but a safe haven as well. I think that would really bode well for the market, no? Of course, there are other initiatives, no, but I think this is one that will probably be able to bolster the confidence in the investment community.
All right. Well, Trump's tariffs now includes lumber, so it's pretty much broadening out. What do you make of the market reaction or inaction? Because the S&P 500 hit a record on Thursday.
Well, again, it's really difficult to assess, and it's always going to be day to day because again, this is more on the political front. Whereas the equity market traditionally and over the last 2 to 3 years, they've always just been following, especially the economic data related to inflation and both the BSP and the Fed. Now with the tariff war, I think there's a lot of back and forth between the US and the other countries that are going to be hit by these tariffs. At the start, it was Canada and Mexico, and now he's going after China. And we don't know, or we're just trying to make a best guess at this point as to how the other economies are also going to retaliate if they do so.
Yeah, but what we do know is that the U.S. stock market's rallying, S&P 500 hitting a record. How are you advising clients, Sam, position their money between stocks listed here in the Philippines and those listed in the U.S.?
Well, we do tell them that, or we have to acknowledge the fact that the Philippines has been underperforming, no, relative to other countries, and yet everyone does acknowledge that they're very cheap. In fact, I think we already had a round of corporate earnings that came out. I think Ayala Land just released theirs, and for us it was in line. I think others had it above or had a better view of them. Metrobank also released their earnings, and they even declared a dividend. And yet, with this, why are they not coming into the Philippine market? I think really because the foreigners, they don't want it. It's a bit of risk off. They don't want to go into another economy, especially when they see all of these tariff wars happening. No, so they'd rather put it in where it's more or safe or more safe haven investments in their point of view. But I think eventually we do hope that they're going to come back, right? Even if the Philippines has been underperforming last year, no, or probably for the last 18 months, if you look at it or you dissect it as a whole, almost half of the index names were still, fairly positive. In fact, the likes of, let's say, ICT, BDO, Meralco, you saw 30, 40, even 50% growth. So there are still some names, and that's what we tell them. So we really have to be very discriminating in how we pick those stocks in the PSCI.
All right, before we go, Luis, we know that you just came back from Hokkaido and we're loving those pictures of you snowboarding. Let's take a look at that. You said 1,000 times? Falling 1,000 times to get this shot?
Because I'm still a beginner. Actually, it might look impressive to first timers, but if you are a seasoned snowboarder, it's really just the view from how a beginner treats it, and it's very exciting for me to experience this because I've only done this a handful of times, over my life. Again, there are not so many places where you get heavy snowfall, and they said that Japan has one of the best snowfall in the world. In fact, they said it's the snowiest country, in the world.
Yeah.
It broke a record, I think, recently. I think there was a snowfall. They got within, I think, 24 hours of around 4 feet because, again, the cold winds from Siberia blow to Japan, and that's why it's very ideal for snowboarding.
Well, I hope you're not getting a weather shock now with temperatures here above 30 degrees. I do know about the powdery snow there in Hokkaido. Lived and worked there myself in 4 years. Thank you so much, Luis. Have a great weekend ahead. Luis Limlingan of Regina Capital Development Corporation. And coming up after the break, the Vatican says Pope Francis' condition is improving as he remains hospitalized. Catch our conversation with Brother Armin Luistro, FSC, about the Filipino faithful in Rome praying for the Pope's health. Keep it here on One News. Past 2 a.m. at the Vatican City. That's a live shot there. In its most recent update, the Vatican says the Pope's health is, quote, slightly improving and his blood analysis stable. Pope Francis has been admitted at Rome's Gemelli Hospital since last week after struggling to breathe for several days. Currently, the Pope has no fever and is breathing on his own. One of his aides told Reuters the pontiff is moving around the hospital room, taking phone calls and doing some paperwork. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni visited Francis on Wednesday, telling reporters that he has not lost his sense of humor after some people were betting on his passing. The faithful continue to pray outside the hospital for the speedy recovery of the 88-year-old Pope. I spoke earlier with Brother Armin Luistro, FSC, the Superior General of the Brothers of the Christian Schools in Rome. Brother Luistro has been in Rome for over 2 years, fulfilling his Lasallian mission at the Vatican and meeting Pope Francis on several occasions. So what is the atmosphere like around there as the world closely monitors the Pope's health? Here is what he had to say.
Well, the mood in Rome is very somber. As you know, people are very worried because they know that the Pope's health is not really that good at this time. He has many issues. He's very much missed, especially on Wednesdays, because that's the regular papal audiences with special groups. And then on Sundays, the noontime Angelus, everybody's there in St. Peter's praying with him. But we know that the Pope's health has been really, really being challenged. And I don't think people realize that this is something a little more serious. Actually, when he was brought to the hospital, we know that he did that on his own accord, with some egging from his doctors, because he does not really focus on his health too much. He likes to meet people. He wants to go on these visits, and even on his wheelchair, he likes to meet them face to face. So he does not want to take so much time for himself and his health. No? But people know that this is a little more serious than the usual. And the reports that we've been getting, that at least the last 2 days, is not as good as the first days he was there. So people are getting really worried. A lot of prayers and a lot of talk about how much more can we support him. But that's really up to the doctors and his medical team.
Well, within the religious community, brother, what's being discussed amongst yourselves on perhaps succession at this point?
As you know, even during the past 2-3 years, that's part of the big discussion. Not only because of his health, but also because his predecessor has resigned. So resigning is always there. Pope Francis has spoken about that too as a possibility. What has surfaced is that he has written his own last will and testament, and so people know about that he is very well prepared. I think the question is whether we are prepared to lose him at this time, especially those of us who are in education. We are looking forward to his big project, which is the Global Compact on Education, bringing together world leaders and especially those coming from other faiths. His big church move for synodality is another major event for the whole church. As you know, there's the first woman religious who's now heading a dicastery, a great time for women. And very recently, in the last few days, he has appointed a woman to administer this Vatican City. So all of these great changes are very important for us. So I think it's really more the question is on us. Are we ready to continue the reforms of Pope Francis, our beloved Lolo Kiko, as Filipinos love to call him? And are we committed to do that with him, but also if he leaves the leadership? So I think that's more the big worry of people.
Talk to us about the Filipino community there. As you mentioned, ang tawag nga sa kanya, Lolo Kiko. How are they holding on and holding up amid the latest news that it's not so good over the past 48 hours?
Well, there are spontaneous prayers that are recited. As you know, he is loved so much by the Filipino community because he connects with us. And we know how much he has made that effort to visit us during the most difficult times of the last typhoon disaster. So the Filipino community feel, rightly or wrongly, that he belongs to us. And we love to call him, when Filipinos go there, we wave our flags and we know he will greet us. So there is that very special relationship. And a lot of the groups are doing their own community prayers. Of course, during the masses every day, that's the most important intention that everyone has.
Yeah, we can't forget the pictures, when he flew right into the typhoon, into the rain path with his yellow raincoat.
With his yellow.
And the winds were so strong. He conducted that mass in Tacloban. From a personal basis, Brother Armin, as you've been there 2.5 years, how would you describe him as a person?
Well, you can catch him when it is on a one-on-one in a small group, his best self, because he is not the Pope, the formal and the traditional one. He really presses hands with you and prays for you and listens to you. even the little gifts that people gave him on these big audiences, he takes the time to just stop, no? And to the big fear of all of his security personnel, he just breaks protocol, no? And that's exactly what endears him to us, and especially to the Filipinos, because I know some groups are right there in the big square, and a small group of Filipinos will just call him Lolo Kiko, and he would spontaneously just look at them and greet them very warmly. So I think that's the real Francis that groups all over the world love.
Well, you bring for us that Filipino spirit right there in Rome, and be assured that we are praying for the good Pope, right where we're at here in Manila. Thank you so much, Brother
I know a
Armin.
lot of the Filipino communities. I see that in social media, and the prayers are very much appreciated, because at this time, the Pope, who keeps asking people, I will pray for you, you pray for me, now needs our prayers. So we are all united, especially for Pope Francis at this time.
Brother Armin Luistro there, speaking with me exclusively from Rome, Italy. When we come back, business process outsourcing groups say the Create More Act boosts competitiveness. Money Talks returns after this break. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. The Bureau of Internal Revenue is ramping up efforts for its national tax campaign. BIR Commissioner Romeo Lumagi Jr. graced the kickoff ceremony in NCR South Thursday. In his speech, Lumagi said they are banking on tax collections from online businesses, influencers, and even politicians.
Tingin natin dahil nakikita rin natin sa mga reports mismo na maraming mga kandidato rin na maraming malaki ang gastos. So inaasahan natin na yung mga pinagkakagastosin nila sa mga TV ads, yung mga radio ads nila, at saka yung mga tarpaulins, lahat ng mga supplies niyan. Of course, kung ilan din yan, malaki, may mga collection din tayo dyan.
In 2024, the BIR exceeded its revised 2.85 trillion peso collection goal, mainly driven by VAT collections. Lumagi called on the public to be responsible taxpayers to maintain the country's post-pandemic bounce back.
Huwag na po nating hintayin ang deadline na pwede na pong mag-file at magbayad ng annual income tax return on or before April 15.
An industry group says the Create More Act is set to enhance the competitiveness of the information technology and business process management industry. The IT and Business Process Association of the Philippines said the reform directly addresses key industry concerns. This was in response to the signing of the law's implementing rules and regulations. The group highlighted the law provides a long-term legal basis for work-from-home and hybrid setups for registered businesses in ecozones and free ports. They also said Create More and its new rules will ease business challenges encountered by RBEs. With these changes, the association expects a more stable, cost-efficient, and investor-friendly environment for IT BPM companies. Fewer building permits were approved in December 2024. The Philippine Statistics Authority reports a 10.8% decline compared to the 1% growth from a year earlier. The agency says over 10,000 permits were approved, down more than 2,000 in 2023. Former Bangko Sentral Deputy Governor Diwa Gingundo says a housing glut could be slowing construction. He also said high lending rates may be a factor behind the weak building activity. Economist Reniel Erese said that some investors might be delaying projects as they wait for lower interest rates this year. Most approved permits were in Calabarzon, followed by Central Visayas and Central Luzon. Metro Pacific Investments Corporation is looking at a strong 2024. Company Chairman and CEO Manuel V. Pangilinan says profits could grow by double digits, driven by its power business and other subsidiaries. He said Meralco is leading that growth, with strong financials expected this year. This is MPIC's first full year as a private company after voluntarily leaving the stock exchange in October 2023. In 2023, MPIC's net income grew by nearly 90% to almost 20 billion pesos, driven by growth in its power, toll roads, and water businesses. Meanwhile, revenue climbed over 20% to 61 billion pesos. For more on these stories, check out Business World online. The North Luzon Expressway is upgrading its radio frequency identification or RFID system ahead of the full cashless shift on March 15th. NLEX Corporation is investing 1.4 billion pesos in high-frequency scanners that can read RFID stickers from a distance and detect up to 3 vehicles before entry. The Toll Regulatory Board requires 98% of RFID readability and vehicle detection within a second at toll entry. Apart from this, a portion of that budget will be allocated to new automatic license plate recognition cameras across 315 toll lanes. With these upgrades, some toll barriers can remain open, ensuring smoother traffic flow for motorists. And that is it for Money Talks with Cathy Yang. Catch us again on Monday, 9:30 a.m. here on One News. We're also streamed live on YouTube and on our Facebook channels. And if you haven't done so, like and follow my social media pages. And as we go, let's take another look at that live shot from the Vatican where it's coming up to 3 a.m. local time. We continue to pray for the Pontiff's improved health. Have a great weekend, everyone.